Welcome to Insights for Business Owners. And on this episode, we have Kelly Finley, who's a financial advisor at Edward Jones in San Antonio, Texas. Kelly, great to have you on the podcast.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be here today.
Awesome. And as we were chatting, we've got a San Antonio office now. And so super great to connect with you. And I think you're going to be such a great resource for our clients, buying and selling businesses. But I really wanted to hone in and focus in on you have a very special designation and training that can be really helpful in the M&A space called CEPA. And I might even be saying it wrong. But why don't
No,
you
you're saying it correct.
tell us all about that. Love to hear it. And also, all your other amazing things you're doing.
Yeah, so we'll dive right in. So CEPA is an acronym. It stands for Certified Exit Planning Advisor, and
Okay.
it's someone who's trained to help business owners build value in their
Nice.
company and transition out of it successfully, whether that means they're selling their business, passing it on to the next generation, or
Mm,
simply creating flexibility in their future. So
nice. That's great.
CEPA is something I think you will be hearing a lot more about in the next several years to come. A lot more folks are learning about it and understanding the
Yeah.
true value that it brings.
100%. And that's a lot of, and I love the fact that you talked about all of these ways that an owner could transition. That's a lot. So maybe let's start with just, hey, you're a business owner, you're thinking of selling in 3 to 5 years. How can you be helpful to them with the CEPA
Yeah,
training?
absolutely. I think the biggest thing is knowing that selling a business is not like selling a house. It's not like you can stick a for sale sign in the window and have it sold within a couple days, couple months.
Right. Right.
Really, exit planning, we're all going to exit our business someday. Whether,
Yeah.
again, we're going to retire, or going to die, we're going to pass it
Yeah.
on to the next generation or sell to a third party buyer. And
Right.
it's all about, planning and preparing for that eventual exit. And
Mm,
there's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on what is most important to you and, what's your first round pick, if you will. And
yeah.
understanding it's going to take time to build that because
Right.
this is your baby. You've poured a
Yeah.
lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it may not be as attractive to a buyer today as it could
Mm,
be in that 3 to 5 years that you're looking to sell. So
yeah.
really that sweet spot is about that, 3 to 5 year time horizon, because that's the time to be making those changes and those improvements to make your business as attractive as possible. Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, your business is worth something and we want to get the
Right.
best premium dollar for it. And it's going to take time to implement, to change, to build that value.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. And so, what are some of the changes with that time horizon that a seller can start working on?
Yeah, great question. So I think the biggest thing, the most attractive to a buyer is
Yeah.
understanding all the key components. They want to understand cash flow, what's the book like.
Yep.
But the most intangible thing is the culture, right?
Oh,
Because
wow.
people
Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
from people they like and they
Yeah.
trust.
Mm-hmm.
And the tenure that you've got. So I'll give a couple of examples. Well, you
Yeah.
got a business owner, maybe they've got 20 employees, but the
Yeah.
owner is the one that started the business, and most of the sales, let's say 70% of the sales, come from that business owner's relationship, and the other 30%
Right.
is from maybe the other employees' sales.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a big red flag, right? As a buyer, because if you're looking to buy, well, if I'm the owner and I bring in 70% of the sales, when I retire or move on to my next gig,
Mm,
you're looking at a 70% deficit. So, how do we, over that 3 to 5 year time horizon,
mm-hmm.
transition that sales relationship from the owner to the employees who most likely are going to be
Wow.
staying on during that transition? So,
Oh my
that's an
gosh.
example.
Yeah.
Um, Making sure you have your books in order, right?
Yeah.
Because people want to see the receipts on stuff. Like, what is your EBITDA? What is your revenue? Where's the proof that anybody could say, hey, I do this, but where's the proof in the
Right.
pudding?
Yeah.
And where's your sales Bible or your standard operating procedures for all
Mm-hmm.
aspects of the community? Because if it's up here
Oh
and
my
it's
gosh.
not down on paper,
Yeah.
how is that person that comes in to replace you, or that team that comes in to replace you, they can't, it's not a turnkey operation at that point. So
Mm.
liking it again to the real estate example, you walk into a house that maybe hasn't been updated since the 70s, and
Right.
you walk into it, and in your mind, you're like, gosh, look at all the renovations I have to do. The kitchen's outdated, the yard is, just a disaster. And all you're thinking about is cha-ching, cha-ching, and the time that's going to take. But then you go
Right.
tour the brand new build, and it's like ready to move in, right? Move in ready, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is great. All I have to do is move in my furniture.
Yeah.
So it's thinking about it in those terms, is how do you get that business attractive to the next buyer? So
Hmm.
talking through all those things, and being realistic about it too, because if you don't want to do, the renovations to get everything up
Hmm.
to snuff, well, then
Yeah.
you're going to have a lower selling price. And
Right.
if you're okay
Right.
with that, then hey, you're okay with that. But if you've
Right.
got 3 to 5 years to make those improvements, then you're going to have a more attractive selling price and more money you walk away with at the end of the day.
100%. So do you come in and do almost what I would think of as like a CEPA audit where you like review all these aspects of a business?
So some CEPAs do. So
Okay.
I think it's important to know that CEPAs have, it's kind of, for me at least, it's kind of a two-prong approach.
Okay.
My day, I'm a financial advisor by day. So
Yeah.
I help
Okay.
individual investors, but I also help business owners, because
Yeah.
most business owners, their retirement nest egg is tied up in the value of their business.
Right.
There are
Right.
CEPAs that are attorneys, there are
Oh,
CEPAs
wow.
that are tax advisors, and there are
Oh.
CEPAs that help with the valuation of the business. So a
Mm.
CEPA could have another role, and I think it's great to understand
Yeah.
that not every CEPA is a financial advisor, and
Mm.
that's okay. And not every financial advisor is a CEPA, but a
That's
CEPA
helpful. I had
adds.
no idea. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
thank you. And I was like, hey, I'm writing this down. I think I'll look
Yeah.
into it, become a
Yeah, no,
attorney
it's
CEPA. Yeah.
it basically, so the CEPA designation is talking about, like, from a high level down to the nitty gritty, what are all the key components and the little nuances that go into a successful exit. And
Yep.
so, as a financial advisor, my role in this is almost acting like a quarterback, if you will. So, if you're
Nice.
my client and you own Acme Brick Company and you're wanting to sell in this 3 to 5 year time horizon, well,
Yep.
we start and say, okay, well, Dave, what are your spending needs right now from a personal level? Like, what is
Yeah.
your spending like right now? And
Hmm.
how much of that is coming directly from the business? More than likely, all of
Mm.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Now we're fast forwarding 5 years down the road and you're retired. Well, where's
Yep.
that money every month coming from? Well, from the
Right.
sale of the business. Well, what's the valuation of the business? We have to identify your wealth gap. What do you
Yeah.
need throughout retirement versus where
Hmm.
you at today? So if we
Yeah.
can identify, and I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say you
Yeah.
need $5,000 a month for
Right.
living expenses,
Yeah.
just for inflation over the
Yeah.
next 30 years.
Right.
Well, great. That's what we need. And, where are our income sources and where is the deficit? And that's where
Yep.
we need to figure out, okay, to get where you want to go and then to take all these vacations and, pay for your
Hmm.
grandkids' college, et cetera. This
Right.
is the dollar amount. Here's the price tag for that. Can
Yep.
you do it today or can you not?
Right.
Where, we have let's say maybe there's a $3 million deficit. Well, great. We got
Hmm.
3 to 5 years to increase that. Maybe it's improvements in the
Yeah,
culture.
that's a
Maybe
lot.
it's
That's a lot.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
but it's thinking about those types of things. But then it's also, it's all about choice, right? I mean, you got to
Hmm.
have food, clothing, and shelter, but
Right.
maybe that European vacation every 2 years flying first class is maybe
Right.
that's out of the question type of thing. So my
Yeah.
role, to circle back, is really helping you identify what is your wealth gap. And
Mm.
then from that point, okay, so we've identified in our scenario, you have a $3 million wealth gap to achieve the goals you
Hmm.
said you want to. Well,
Yeah.
great. I'm not the business professional expert as far as your business. I don't understand brick building manufacturing, but
Yeah.
let me get you in touch with a business coach that can come in and help,
Nice.
you know, see where you're at. Maybe it's the sales improvement, maybe it's an operations improvement, maybe it's a culture improvement too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, those types of things. So I basically can look at it from high level,
Yeah.
from beginning all the way to end, and helping you with that transition. And the other important thing that I do is we plan and prepare for when that sale comes through.
Oh. Mhm.
Well, what are we doing with this money now? Like, how are we
Yeah.
getting the most bang for our buck? What's a tax strategy we might want to
Mm.
employ, et cetera? Um,
That's great.
so it's the
Um,
money side of things. What it's going to do for
yeah,
me for the personal side that is really my sweet spot.
makes sense. Yeah, and so it sounds like you come in with like a SEPA team. And how many people are generally on your team? Like, yeah, or I
Yeah,
guess it
so
depends what people need, but yeah.
it really does depend, right? Because your smaller businesses, like mom and pop businesses, maybe 10 to 20 employees, is going to be a vastly different need than a company that has 200 employees,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, very, very different needs. And so, my area of expertise is more in those smaller businesses. And what I mean by
Okay.
that is 100 employees or less. And
Yeah.
the reason why is I can do my best work there, and it's not then multi-site. The more people in the pot, so to speak, the more
Yeah.
decision makers there could be. So
Mhm.
for me, when I'm working with a business owner, is first and foremost, I'm asking them. I can do plug and play. Who do you already use as
Mm.
your outside counsel for?
Yeah.
You have a business attorney, right? When you created the
Yeah.
business, and you're going to have to
Yeah.
use an attorney whenever you're selling the business. Do you already
Right.
have someone? If not, I can
Mhm.
introduce you to some folks. Who's your
Definitely.
tax person? Because maybe, again, maybe they've done well, or maybe the business has outgrown that person's
Yeah.
area of expertise.
That
So it's
happens a lot.
meeting them
Yeah.
where they're at.
Mhm.
And if they already have a team, great, we'll work in tandem with them.
Yeah.
And then if they need additional folks, and talking about, the sale, there's different based on the size. Maybe you need just a local broker at the bank. Maybe you
Mhm.
need, more of a mergers and acquisitions team, and maybe you need an
Mhm.
investment banker. It really depends on that size.
Yeah.
So there's different folks that come in at different areas throughout. And I think it's very important to understand, first and foremost, where's the client at? Like, how much
Mhm.
knowledge do you have? And then provide the education and introductions along the way to make that a well rounded team.
You mentioned, obviously one of the main ways to, move on from your business is to sell it to an outside buyer.
Hmm.
But do CEPA professionals also help people maybe transition to internal buyers?
Yes,
Like say ESOP, employee stock ownership plan, those kind of things too. Is that part of the
absolutely.
mix? Yeah,
Absolutely.
cool.
So essentially, there's three ways that you can exit the business, or three
Yeah,
potential transition options, right?
yeah,
The first is the least ideal out of all of them. It's just you're shutting your doors and maybe
right.
having a fire sale for equipment. It's going to be
Yeah,
the fastest exit, but probably the least amount of money in your pocket.
right.
The second is that internal transfer. So maybe
Hmm.
you, as the owner, are stepping away, and maybe now it's an ESOP and the employees have ownership of it, and you're just like, sweet, I'm riding off into retirement or starting a new business.
Yeah.
And that is probably the easiest transition from the
Hmm.
employees, because not whole lot has changed, right? Like,
Right.
it's still the same people, it's still the same business. There may just be a few semantics or a few changes,
Yeah.
but that may not be the greatest. That's kind of the medium range payout for you.
Right.
The biggest payout, but with the most change, would be that third party buyer, because a third
Hmm.
party could come in, and we've all heard stories about companies that bought somebody else out and the culture completely changed, or
Yeah.
like what it was is not what it is today. But
Hmm.
maybe it's a really attractive sticker price for you, and you
Hmm.
you want to go that route.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the options. Ideally that second and third scenario, either an internal transfer or a third party buyer. I want to. The reason I got my CEPA is I worked with
Yeah.
two business owners that just unfortunately kind of decided, oh, hey, like, we want to be done in a couple months. We didn't have
Ah,
enough runway for planning, and they just had to
right.
shut down their business. And it was sad, because that
It's sad.
that they had spent years, decades building their business, and
Yeah.
they didn't really have anything to show for it from a paycheck standpoint when all was said and done.
Yeah. No, we've all seen it. And actually, along those lines, you read about that only a certain percentage, a small percentage of businesses are actually selling.
Yeah.
And there's,
So
10%, 15%, something like that. I don't know. What do
yeah.
you see?
So
Like, yeah.
So the Exit Planning Institute, EPI, is who I got my CEPA
Nice.
designation with, and they do a state of business owner readiness report that usually comes out about every year or so. And they
Yeah.
look at, of the businesses that were put to market, how many of them actually sold, and only
Mm,
about 30% of them sell.
30%.
But
Okay.
an even more jaw-dropping statistic is
Yeah.
of that 30%,
Yeah.
only 10% of them actually sell for the price that the business owner wanted.
Oh my
So
gosh.
zooming back out, of all the businesses that
All
are
the,
listed for
yeah, penny.
sale, 1 to 3% actually get the selling price the business owner wants. And that's a staggering statistic.
That is
And
staggering. That is
like
real.
it's just crazy, right? Like 1 to 3%. So out of
Yeah,
100 businesses, maybe 3 actually are sold
penny.
for a great price for the business owner. And then the other 27 sell, but not as a favorable price for the business owner. And the other 70 just close their doors because they
That's
were done
amazing.
and didn't want to do, I don't want to do another 5 years to get my business ready or
Hmm.
what have you.
That is, yeah, it's a terrible statistic. And it's funny. I mean, my question, maybe it answers itself, is how do we improve that? And maybe it's CEPA and it's
Yeah,
working with the CEPA advisor well in advance. Is
exactly.
that okay?
You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I think CEPA has been one of those up and coming that we've been around for several years, but knowing about it. And one of the things that I love is the awareness.
Mm,
There's a lot of local CEPA chapters around the country. So in some of
nice.
those bigger cities, our closest one is up in Austin.
Austin. All right.
But I know they've got several chapters across the country, and you can look at a CEPA directory to see who's in your local area and look up and, hey, I want a financial advisor that's a CEPA, or I want an attorney that's a CEPA, or what
Yeah.
have you. But I think the other thing is just the education about it, right? A lot of people think, oh, I'm never going to retire, or this is my
Right.
baby, and but they don't think about that eventual exit. And
Right.
it's talking about those things. And exit doesn't have to mean retirement.
Mm,
Exit doesn't have to mean death. It could just be, hey, I built this and now I'm moving on to the next venture,
yeah.
or I'm, semi-retired or what have you. But what is the end goal that we're working towards? And it's okay too if you're 3 years in and you're like, actually, I really love this. I don't want
Yeah.
to sell. I want to keep going, because maybe you found that newfound second wind
Yep.
underneath your wings. But for me, it's just first and foremost awareness that,
Hmm.
hey, we're out. There's folks out there to help.
Yeah. So you think this is helpful? With help, more businesses could sell, and not always for exactly what people want, but sell and get good value for the sellers. Like they are decent enough
Absolutely.
businesses. They're just not getting the help they need.
Absolutely. Well, because as a
Yeah.
business owner, right, you know what your business is. You
Yeah.
created it, you built it from the ground up, or you've done it, operations and sales. You
Hmm.
know what it takes. That's your sweet spot. Again, my Acme brick example.
Yeah.
If I, as a financial advisor, all of a sudden brought Acme Brick Company, I wouldn't know the first thing about, the manufacturing process and maybe
No.
rules and regulations and all the things.
Yeah.
That's not my skill set. So it would be, that wouldn't be something I'd want to go buy, because I
Right.
personally don't know anything about
You don't
it.
know it.
But if
Yeah.
there's another, XYZ brick company is looking to grow their footprint and they want to
Hmm.
have exposure here in San Antonio, then great. They might acquiesce another company, buy them out. So I think it's understanding, is there a future need for this business? Like, who
Yep.
would my ideal buyer be? You want to find somebody
Yeah.
that, is passionate about the business, going to grow it, going to give you a fair
Hmm.
price for it. But you have to think about the buyer, because they're going to look at
Yeah.
it with a different set of eyes than you are, because they're
Yeah.
going to they're going to come in and your baby might be ugly, and they're not. I mean, they'll tell you
No
that,
one wants to
or
admit that, Kelly. No
yeah,
one wants to
nobody
admit that.
does. But it's it's the
My baby's
unspoken
beautiful.
elephant in the room. If your baby's ugly, you're
Yep.
probably not going to get as much accolades than if you did the work.
Yeah, no, I get it. This is awesome, Kelly. And I've learned so much, and this is great because I'm going to look into CEPA, I'm going to look into EPI. I did not realize that it's for all sorts of professionals. And it sounds like you can build a great team. And then when you meet with a client, you can sort of offer a large team, small team, whatever makes sense for them, really customized.
Absolutely. And I think it's also
Yeah.
important to know too, it's not just like a one and done meeting. It might be
Nice.
for certain parts in the transaction, like when you get closer to the end sale, right? You may have
Hmm.
limited interaction towards the end with your attorney or with that investment banker or that broker.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the financial advisor or the valuation expert, anything that you're doing within that 3 to 5 year time horizon, I think it's realistic to say once a quarter you should be meeting with those folks. And the reason
Yeah.
why the bedrock of what CEPA does is they call these 90-day sprints. So you first have
Oh,
to get through, they have three different gates. And the first gate is basically just figuring out, okay, what are the risks that we have and how do we de-risk the company? And
yeah.
then you take, 90 days at a time. Maybe that first 90-day sprint is, well, we're underinsured and we're going to go get an insurance policy and make sure we have key
Hmm.
owner insurance and
Yeah.
revisit it in a hey, did we achieve the goal? Great. If we didn't, then
Yeah.
we bump it out to the next 90-day sprint. Maybe the next
Hmm.
one is we don't have an SOP, a standard operating procedure for how we find new leads and close business. So it's, working on things bite size at a time. And
Yeah.
the thing that I love about CEPA is at the end of every 90 days, you should ask yourself, am I ready to exit or
Oh,
do I
wow.
still want to grow? So you should
Mm.
always be in the position that if somebody were to call you today and say, hey, Dave, I'd buy
Hmm.
your business today. Well, if you've been doing the work all along, well, hey, if I sold today, here's where my business would be valued. Great,
Yeah.
cool, sounds great. Or no, I think I could put another year in and maybe get an even
Let's keep
higher,
going.
more attractive selling price for me.
Keep going. That's awesome. Kelly, what is the best way people can find you?
Great question. You can just search Edward Jones, Kelly Finley, or I'm
Okay.
also on LinkedIn. So
Nice.
you can find me there. My email is kelly.finley, and that's Kelly with just a Y, and then Finley at
Great.
edwardjones.com.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
reach
you
out
so
and
much
send
for
me an
sharing
email, and
this.
then we can schedule time to chat on Zoom, or if you're in San Antonio, come by my office.
All right. No, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all this great information.
You are sure welcome. Thank you for having me today.
Cheers.